I was making dinner when the phone rang, a collections agent asking if I could tell my husband his payment for the apartment on Brookside Avenue was overdue. I froze. What apartment? I asked. She said it was in another woman's name, but my husband was paying for it. I was chopping onions when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize at first. I almost ignored it, probably another spam call, but something in me decided to answer. A polite woman's voice came through, introducing herself from a collections agency. She asked if I could pass along a message to my husband Daniel that his payment for the apartment on Brookside Avenue was overdue. My hand froze midair. The knife hovered above the cutting board as if the air had turned to glue. I asked her, slowly, "I'm sorry, what apartment?" My voice was even, but inside, a wave of heat rushed up my neck. She didn't hesitate, as if I already knew, casually adding that the unit was in another woman's name, but Daniel was the listed payer. Every word she spoke seemed to stretch time, making the kitchen feel smaller, the air thicker. I thanked her, my voice on autopilot, and hung up. The quiet that followed wasn't peaceful, it was deafening. I stood there, phone still in my hand, my mind trying to race ahead while my body felt like it was made of stone. Something inside me knew this wasn't a misunderstanding, and just like that, the ground beneath my life began to shift. The smell of dinner still hung in the air, but I couldn't taste or smell a thing anymore. My heart was pounding so loud, I was sure it could be heard over the faint sizzle of the pan. I set the knife down slowly, as if any sudden movement might shatter the thin thread holding me together, Brookside Avenue. I'd never heard Daniel mention that street, not once in all our years together. My mind started flipping through the mental Rolodex of our life, birthdays, bills, little routines, looking for something, anything that made this make sense, but nothing did. Instead, pieces of a different puzzle began to fall into place: the late nights at work, the times he came home smelling like a different brand of soap, then we kept here cash withdrawals that never made it into our household budget. I leaned against the counter, gripping the edge like it might anchor me. I didn't cry, not yet. The tears were there pressing behind my eyes, but a sharper emotion was cutting through the fog, curiosity laced with dread. I needed to know more, and deep down, I already knew that whatever I found, there would be no unknowing it. I walked over to the table and sat down, my phone resting in front of me like it held a ticking bomb. My dinner was still cooking, but the sound of it didn't pull me back. Nothing could. I replayed the woman's voice in my head, every casual syllable that had just detonated my evening, another woman's name, an apartment he was paying for. The words circled me like vultures, picking at the edges of my trust. I thought about calling him right then, demanding an explanation, but something in me whispered, wait. It wasn't fear, it was instinct. If Daniel had managed to keep something this big from me, then he had probably rehearsed the lies he'd use if I ever got too close to the truth. I wouldn't give him that chance. Not yet. I turned off the stove, letting the food sit in the pan untouched. My appetite was gone, replaced by a slow, calculated hum in the back of my mind. If there was another address in his life, I was going to find it, and when I did, he wouldn't see me coming. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the name of that street like it was burned into my mind, Brookside Avenue. By morning, the sharp ache in my chest had shifted into a quiet, steady determination. Over coffee, I started retracing the last few months in my head, pulling on threads I ignored before: Daniel's late meetings that always seemed to pop up last minute, the way he'd sometimes come home freshly showered, his hair still damp, carrying a faint trace of cologne we didn't own. I chalked it up to stress, maybe even his way of blowing off steam after work. But now those explanations felt laughably thin, like paper umbrellas in a hurricane. I opened our joint account statements on my laptop, scrolling with a hand that trembled despite my best effort to stay calm. That's when I saw them: monthly transfers, each for the same amount, and each one matching the figure the collections agent had mentioned. My heart sank, but my mind sharpened. This wasn't a single mistake or a forgotten bill. This was routine, planned, maintained, and that meant there was a whole life neatly hidden existing alongside mine. I typed the address into the search bar, my pulse thudding in my ears in seconds, the screen filled with glossy images: a luxury apartment complex with glass balconies, manicured gardens, and a lobby that looked like it belonged in a five-star hotel. I stared at the photos. My mouth dry. This wasn't some shabby secret tucked away in the shadows. This was deliberate, indulgent. I imagined Daniel there laughing, pouring wine, maybe cooking dinner in that sleek kitchen for someone who wasn't me. The thought didn't just sting, it burned. I zoomed in on the building, memorizing every detail, from the curved awnings to the placement of the front entrance. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. My mind started cataloging every suspicious moment I'd brushed off: the weekends he insisted on catching up on work alone, the unexplained gas receipts from a part of town we never visited, the sudden bursts of generosity toward himself, new clothes, upgraded electronics that didn't seem to match his usual habits. And just like that, the pieces locked together. He wasn't just visiting this place. He was keeping it. I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping against the floor, the sound sharp in the quiet kitchen. The truth had settled in my chest like a weight I couldn't shake off. This wasn't a fling in the shadows. It was a second life, one he'd built with care and money that was supposed to be ours, and somewhere inside that polished building was the woman he'd chosen to share it with. I thought about confronting him right away, but the same voice that stopped me the night before spoke again, low, steady, certain: not yet. I needed proof, not just for me, but for the moment when his mask would finally crack. I wanted him to see that I knew everything. I glanced at the clock. If I timed it right, I could be near Brookside Avenue when he left work. My stomach twisted at the thought, but there was no turning back. Now, whatever I found next, I would carry it straight into the heart of what came after. The next evening, I parked my car a block away from the Brookside building. My hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. The place was even more impressive in person, glass panels catching the fading sunlight, polished stone steps leading to a lobby that glowed like it was welcoming royalty. I kept my head low watching the entrance.